Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our weekly Improving Talk session. I am very excited to welcome you as we start our brand new Improving Talk series, Secrets of Software Project Success. In today's webinar, a case study for the future, a method for establishing a shared vision, Randall will explore a case study that served as a vision statement, providing a clear and compelling direction for the project by aligning teams, guiding decisions, and driving success.
Thanks, Armando, and welcome everyone. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to come hang out with me. We're going to be talking about a case study for the future. Visions are hard, right? Like I do this with companies, with teams, with product managers all the time, trying to set visions for the future, outlining where we want to be, right? And that's not really all that easy. It's a tough thing to do. And a lot of times, even when you get a good one, it kind of falls flat. So I was at a crossroads, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later on. And I really needed to nail this. I really needed to figure out how to do like a vision, right? It's a vision for the future. And what I settled on was doing a case study. Now, case studies are usually past directional, right? You look into the past and you know, okay, we had this project or we had this account we were working on. Here's what happened. Here's what worked. Here's what didn't work. But I took a little bit of a twist on that. In order to clarify and generate a vision that people could use, I did one 6 months early at the very start of my engagements. And so I'll talk a little bit about what makes a good vision in my experience. I'll talk a little bit about my experience with the case study that I wrote. And hopefully you get a little bit about it, a little bit out of it, and maybe try some yourself maybe in the future. So let's start out with a little bit more about me. I am a business agility consultant. I really like working with people and teams and organizations to help them kind of get out of their own way. We've all seen organizations, even good ones, great ones, and people, even good ones or great ones, that kind of are their own worst enemy at times, right? And so, that kind of bugs me. So I like to help people get past that, because the work doesn't have to be suffering. My work is hard. Your work shouldn't be hard. If you are suffering at work, something is probably not right? Come call me. Come find me. I'll try and help. I'm also an Air Force veteran. I did 6 years in the Air Force back in 2003 is when I started. That's a while ago now. I don't like that. But, I did 6 years in the Air Force. It really shaped me as a person in many ways. I'm also a father and a husband. So I face all kinds of interesting problems. And one of the problems that I face is vision. Vision is hard. It's very difficult. I have these 4 characteristics that I think help identify a good vision. And I'm going to go over those. There's kind of the backbone of this talk. So we'll be going over each of these. But, when you're setting a vision, it's not always easy, right? It's awkward. It's difficult. People don't like to be introspective. People don't like when you ask the same question over and over. And you got to do a whole lot of that when you're trying to craft a good, useful vision. And it has to be useful, right? So I kind of have always struggled with it, right? Coming up with a vision that everybody's able to use, everybody's able to see, it really drives the change that we need to get done. It always kind of like fell flat, right? Even when I had a really good vision, sometimes they have a habit of going limp, right? Like you're always having to refer to it. You're always having to like lift it up, always having to push it forward. Well, a vision should be pushing you forward, right? Like it kind of the wrong way around if you're always trying to support the vision. This problem, me facing it head on, kind of came at a crossroads of crossroads to extend a metaphor. One of the first crossroads was actually in my professional life and in the industry. A while back, my industry, agile coaches, scrum masters, process peeps, we hit a kind of a wall, and people were getting fired in droves. This is the whole agile is dead thing, right? That comes around every once in a while. It really seemed like people that I respected, people that I thought were great, looking for jobs and stuff, really made me ask questions about like my own value. Am I really, that, and a healthy dose of imposter syndrome, right? Made me reevaluate, and am I bringing the value that I think I'm bringing, right? Is it worth it for me? I put everything on the line. Ear muffs, David. I actually decided to run an experiment with my next client. I was going to put everything on the line, and I would either prove value or I would not. And if I didn't, I was just going to go back to being a junior developer. I mean, I love programming. Why not? Right. That also came at a time where our company was trying to do a lot of case studies. Right. I have the privilege of working with the best and brightest people. Anybody who's worked with or worked at improving knows that this isn't bluster. This is for real. I am fond of saying I'm the dumbest person in the building, and what a great position to be in, right? Because I get to learn so much from everybody every single day. These are incredible people, people that doing incredible things that are actually would make your head spin, right? But the problem with incredible people, more often than not, is they don't know how to toot their own horn. So we have all this value that we're giving, all these organizations and people that we're enabling and building cool things for. And it was super hard to bring that out. So we pushed to do these case studies where we would talk to people and publish like all the great stuff they were doing, toot their horn for them. So that happened at kind of the same time of me getting this new client and coming to the crossroads. I'm lazy. I'm super lazy. All the best people are. I'll stand behind that. I do not like doing work if I can avoid it. I'm going to have to do a case study at the end of this anyway. I might as well do a case study right now, right? I can knock out a vision and a case study at one time. That's the kind of work I like to. I decided, okay, that's what I'm going to do. That's what I'm going to set out to do. I'm going to try and sort of start out with the case study and live into the case study. Try and use that as the end point and live into it, sort of direction toward that as I work. And so, I got started. And that kind of brings us to our first point and our first pitfall that you would have to avoid is a good vision needs clarity. To elucidate this point, I'll do a little bit more story time. So when I was in the Air Force, when I was in basic military training, this is my graduating flight, basic military training, 341 from the 321st Hotel Hell. That is my training instructor. Her name was Tech Sergeant Crenshaw. One of the things you'll notice about Sergeant Crenshaw is she is like a head shorter than every other person, but she is a terrifying woman. She would definitely have no problem putting you on, into the dirt, as she gleefully showed us while we were in hand-to-hand combat training. But I'm in this picture too. Might be hard to see me, so I'm going to zoom in a little bit. If you can notice me in this picture, if you can see me, I'm about 100 pounds lighter and an absolute baby. But if you notice all these stoic warfighter looks, all these guys, and then you have one dude with a vacant stare in the top row. Yep, that's me. But anyway, so I was in basic training, and one of the things, because it's basic training and you're trying to learn how to fight wars and stuff, is they teach you how to shoot. They take you to the range, you fire off a bunch of rounds, you sight in your sights. They train every aspect of shooting. If you follow directions, it's kind of hard to fail, right? Ultimately, what happens is you go through 3 different qualifying stages, but the third stage is the only stage that matters. It's the qualifier. They give you 40 rounds, and you have to land half, just 20, right? Just 20. That's not a big deal. It's not that difficult, right? As long as you're following that direction. So, I do all of the different positions. I do everything I'm supposed to do. I pull the gun to my shoulder, the stock to my shoulder. I rest my cheek on the back of the weapon, making sure it rests comfortably so it doesn't move a lot. I do not close my eyes. I line up the sights. I breathe in. I hold it, making sure everything's good. And then I squeeze the trigger and repeat, right? Go through all 40 rounds. And I wasn't even close. Like I was sub 15. It was embarrassing, right? So I had to go back the next day and do it again, alone, without my flight. Anybody who knows basic training knows there's one thing you don't want to be in basic training, and that's an individual. You do not want to be singled out. You do not want to be special. you want to be a wallpaper, right? You just want to float through under the radar. Nobody sees you. Nobody knows your name. If your TI doesn't know your name, you're in easy street, right? So I had to go back. And I did it again. Followed all the directions. I fired off my rounds, came back, same, like same, like didn't even get close, right? And it was frustrating, right? It was frustrating because I was really trying. I was following all the directions, right? I made sure I studied the notes that I took from that day before deep into the night when I should have been sleeping, which is dangerous, but I couldn't miss this, right? So I had to march back. Of course, my TI, calls me into her office. Trainee Dunnigan, get in here. And I walk in. When you get in there, you go to attention. Ma'am, Trainee Dunnigan reports his order. And she's like, Dunnigan, I want you to read this for me. And she pulls up her clipboard. She starts scribbling things down. She holds up the clipboard in front of me, and I close one eye and I leap forward a little bit to read it. And she slams it down on the table and says, "That's what I thought. Report to medical." I was like, what are you talking about? I didn't say that to her. Obviously, I just had the dumb blank expression on my face, the one that you saw earlier. She said, training, you're blind, you idiot. You're a blind idiot. Go to medical. So I did. I went to medical. Turns out she's right. I was a blind idiot. They gave me these like huge Coke bottle glasses that were absolutely hideous at the time. Might actually be trendy nowadays, but absolutely hideous. And I went back, right? I went back to go shoot again, right? But this time was a little bit different. This time I had clarity, right? I was able to see the target. When I did my test shots, I was able to see where they punched the holes. I was in a whole new world. I grew up. I didn't grow up with a whole lot of money, so I had never been to the eye doctor before. I didn't know that this was like this. I just thought, I have 1 weak eye. Oh, well, that's not a big deal, right? But, it kind of changed everything for me. I was able to do the fine-tuned adjustments that I needed to do to be successful because I could see the target, right? I had clarity. We were all operating on the same data. And so, that's the first kind of hurdle that you have to have. That's the first, big thing that you want your vision to have, right? It needs to have clarity. So, I started out with our stakeholders, our sponsors, and started working through their goals. Started asking them, for their goals and stuff. This always happens the exact same way every single time. You get in there and they're like, I want it to be faster. Okay, well, what does that mean, right? Faster time to market? You want your reduction in lead time? You want to get off the couch faster, right? I'm kind of getting older, and that's something that's important to me. So, what does it mean to be faster, right? You have to have more clarity. When I seek out clarity, especially when it comes to goals, I always aim for a measure, right? Nothing brings clarity like a measure. So we swap those out a little bit, right? So we applied some measure. Got to be careful here. Like applying measures, I think, is essential. But do be careful that you don't fall into Goodhart's law, where Goodhart's law says that a measure that becomes a target ceases to be a good measure. Ultimately, it comes down to are we using this measure to measure performance? Because people are going to start to, rightly so, in my opinion, defend themselves and do weird things with it. At that point, you just got to cut bait, kill the measure, and start over. There's really no coming back from that. I grew up in Texas, so this wasn't my first rodeo. I knew that moving forward, I was going to have to protect these measures going forward. So we set these measures, and these actually, you'll notice the past tense on them, ended up in lines in the case study. So we took these. There's a lot more in the case study, but we took these as I took these as the primary pieces that I was going to aim for, and put them in an entire case study that looked like it was ready to be published, right? This is a great start. We had clarity. But once you have clarity, once you know where you're going, you actually have to start doing stuff, right? And that's one of the cool things about a good vision. When you have a good vision, it becomes a tool, right? It's actually very practical. If any of my team's members are here, they can attest to this. I am extremely practical. I have no time for something if it doesn't help us move forward, right? So I love a good vision, even though it's kind of touchy-feely, and I'm very skeptical about touchy-feely things. I love a good vision because a good vision is like that tool that you always reach for. I like to do woodworking. It's another one of those, one of my hobbies that isn't on my endless list of hobbies. When I find myself in the shop, there's one tool it's always like just in reach, always just in the corner of my vision. It's my 12 millimeter. The handle's an inch wide. It has a flat back, a nice hard ash handle. So I use it as, a ruler. I use it as a straight edge. I use it as a awl. I use it as a hammer even. I mean, sometimes I even use it as a chisel. But it's always there, right? It's always within reach. And that's what a good vision is like, right? It's always right there to help out. It helps you kind of cut through the noise. We set out to get started and start working through these. So the first thing you got to do, obviously, you got to figure out, what are we going to do, right? What are the things that we're going to do to reach into that vision, to get to that 6 months from now timeline where that case study we wrote is true, right? So what are the things that we need to do? I always start out with like a whole bunch of like basic things, like things that are always a good idea, right? So we throw these on there, right? We throw a bunch of basic things. These are good ideas, and we might as well do them, right? But once you get started and people start seeing you and getting to know you and stuff, you get a whole lot of honeydews from random people, right? Lots of excellent ideas, things that we're probably going to do anyway. We're kind of pushed at the edge of our limits of what we're actually able to get done at this point, right? We're kind of bumping up against our capacity. It's only 6 months, right? And I'm only one person. But then obviously something goes wrong, something breaks. So we have to jump in and make sure it never happens again. Or maybe there's an initiative and people say, we have to do this, right? And the leaders are coming down and we have to. I hate that phrase. I don't like have to, right? It's just an uninteresting phrase. It's a great way to absolve your responsibility for decision making, though, right? Like, oh, we have to, not my choice, right? I much prefer more curious questions like, should we, can we, must we? Those are better questions that get out of the root of things. So yeah, maybe we add a bunch of things because we ran into an issue, or maybe there's some bad release, right? So we add a whole bunch of crap to make sure that kind of release never happens again. Before you know it, I think everybody's experienced this, if not in your professional life, at least in your personal life, right? There's never enough time in the day. All of this stuff is important. If I go in and say, I don't have time for a retrospective, I am pretty sure there are people in this building that will kick me out, right? Like, that's not something you can do. You need sort of that vision to inform action. And we had a uncanny ability to take that vision, that case study written in the future, and say, like, what in this mess is actually going to help us get there? What is going to give us, those appreciable steps toward that vision, right? And I don't say this often, but it was pretty easy, right? Having that vision sitting there made it pretty easy. You had people doing that for you. They would say, oh, I really like the idea of us having lunch and learns, but I don't think that's going to get us closer to our vision. That's when you really know that it's taking hold, right? That's when you really know that case study is actually kind of working. It reminds me of the elephant and the rider, right? It's a metaphor, right? The elephant and the rider. The elephant, so you have an elephant and a guy riding it, right? So the elephant's emotional, reactive. It just cares about what's right in front of it, right? It's always like veering around. Maybe a mouse spooks it, or it sees a really tasty melon. It's going to go where it goes. But the rider has that long-term vision. The rider knows where they need to be. The rider knows how to get there, the paths that need to be taken, right? So you have to kind of figure out which do you want to be. An organization that is an elephant, or a team that's an elephant, or even an individual that's an elephant, or a product especially that's an elephant, best you can hope for is you got lucky, right? You threw a dart blindfolded and it actually hit something useful, right? More often than not, you're not going to be able to reach the place that you actually need to be. You want to be the writer. You want to have that long-term vision so that it can inform your action, so that you're not just being reactive, right? So a good vision has clarity, it informs action, but since we know what we need to do, now we actually have to do stuff, right? Which is where believable comes in, right? It also needs to be believable. I struggled with this a lot. I still don't like believable in here. If you look at goal theory, right? That dates all the way back to the 70s. probably beyond that. That's just when it was made official by a lot of folks. You always see like achievable or feasible. I'm not really sold on achievable or realistic, right? Because I mean, there's something to be said about a moonshot, right? And I mean, the moonshot itself. Kennedy was, we will put a man on the moon and return him home safely within a decade, within 10 years. Wow, like that. What a vision. Very clear. There's something about that. I mean, it provides its own focus too, right? Like when you have something that's out there, right? The moonshot itself, we did it, right? And it's a metaphor for reaching for something nigh unachievable. That's what it's all about. So imagine being in NASA and having to do like TPS reports. You're trying to put a man on the moon. How stupid would that be? So it's really less about achievable, more about believable. Or you have to get people to be able to get behind it, right? They have to be able to believe it. I like to place these ideas, these visions on a spectrum, right? It's like a two-dimensional spectrum. On the horizontal, the x-axis, you have all the way on the left. It's believe. That's the believe axis, right? All the way on the left, you have no way. There's no freaking way. This is not gonna happen. You're Delulu. This is ridiculous, right? On the far right, it's like, oh yeah, we can't miss, right? Like we got this, right? It's that kind of confidence, like we will do this, right? And then on the y-axis, you have at the top, we're already there. Like not only that's the feasibility axis, right? That's the is it realistic, right? We're already there. It's already reality. We basically can do this. We basically have it already, right? At the very top. Then at the bottom, and there's sci-fi. Right? This is ridiculous. This is sci-fi. Like this will never actually be a thing, right? Now I do know that our industry has a habit of removing the fi from sci-fi, something that I absolutely love. If you ever question this, you can think back to Star Trek, the original series. Now, imagine how many of those gadgets are just day-to-day things that we live with, right? I'm reminded of Lieutenant Uhura, right? With her Bluetooth earpiece right there, right? Got that Bluetooth in there. I mean, that was crazy at the time, but now it's our everyday, right? So yeah, it's sci-fi, but like, maybe we try anyway, right? These quadrants kind of come out like the bottom left quadrant is ridiculous. Nobody believes in it. Probably not going to happen, right? It's ridiculous. If you have a vision that falls into the ridiculous quadrant, you kind of want to try and move it right. That's kind of the goal. Or scrap it all together and try again if it truly is ridiculous. This is the quadrant of the people wearing the sandwich boards on the side of on the corner screaming, right? This is the ridiculous area. I actually prefer ridiculous to depressing. This is kind of where I live my day to day. Having something that's definitely achievable, definitely possible, well within the reach of the people and organizations and teams and products that I'm working with, but nobody believes it. And that's just depressing. It's so sad. Like we could be enjoying so much better. Like I said, this doesn't have to be suffering, right? This could actually be fun. But being stuck in that quadrant kind of sucks. You kind of want to do some evangelizing, try and move it to the right on the believable spectrum, right? Which would put it into the easy area, where, these are things that we can kind of already do. We kind of already believe in it. It can be easy to dismiss the easy, right? And there's like, well, if it's easy, why would you make a vision for it? But I mean, easy visions can be helpful. I mean, delight our customers. I can get behind a vision like that. I mean, it's a little bit vague. We might need some clarity, but it's definitely achievable. Definitely something we can already do, and definitely easily believable. So I'm not mad at that, right? But the last one is like where the mwah is, right? Inspiring, right? It's something that's hard. Remember the moonshot, right? We do this and other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard, right? That's my very bad Kennedy impression, but you get it, right? Like we do this because it's hard. It's inspiring. It's something that we have to reach for, that moonshot, right? And it's kind of nice to have a vision that falls within there. So you kind of want to aim for this area when you're doing a vision. You don't want to be too easy, but this, in my experience, this is kind of the sweet spot. And we kind of, with the pieces that we had in my case study, we lined them out around this area where like we would fall kind of just in the inspiring area around here. But I mean, definitely I had people say like, oh yeah, it'd be nice if we could reduce tech debt by 50%. I mean, if we can, right? I face that all the time. A cool thing about a good vision and getting it to be believable is it's infectious, right? It's one of the fun things about it, right? It's infectious, right? You see people moving that direction. People don't want to be jaded. They don't want to be angry all the time, right? That's a response to their environment. People want to believe in something. People want to be a part of something bigger than themselves. And when you see it in movement, you kind of want to jump on that train. You know, making it believable, getting to that point is a great, goal to, minor goal to have. But once you have it believable and, you're banging on all cylinders and everybody's working toward it, your job's not really, really done. You still have to, a good vision still has to outline a destination, right? I like to drive. I love to drive. And when I say drive, I love to travel in the car. I get a lot of crap for this in my office. We have a retreat in Vegas every year, and I'll drive there. I like to drive there, right? It's a long trek over desert roads, but it's fun. Part of it is like, I absolutely cannot stand the inefficiency of airports. They annoy the ever-loving crap out of me. But also I kind of like the journey, right? I kind of like to take it all in. But I would be absolutely insane if I drove to Vegas and then just kept driving. I mean, I wouldn't be insane. Vegas is not that great of a town, but I would, I've reached where I need to be. Why would you keep going? This seems ridiculous, but teams do this all the time. They do. It's something that drives me absolutely nuts because I'll connect with a team. They're marching on a plan. They've been doing it far beyond where this product or this project is actually delivering the value that they intended to deliver. And I'll get curious and I'll say, hey, why are we doing this? Right? And I'll just start asking those questions. And I get answers back like, oh, it's just the next step. That's what's left. That's the next step in the plan or whatever. It's like, that's not an answer to why. That's not an answer. That doesn't answer the question asked, right? Like, why has a purpose, has a destination in mind, right? I'm reminded of an old movie, Metropolis, right? It's a black and white movie. It's a great movie. But there's a scene in the movie, it's about industry and stuff, but there's a scene in the movie where you have all these workers messing around with this machine, right? They're doing their job. They're working in this machine. And the imagery is just so great, and the physical acting is just so great in this film that it kind of blurs the line between the people and the machine. It gets hard to see where the people end and the machine begins. And that's kind of the whole point of the shot. But it's such a powerful image. And it's something that I frankly run into more often than I care to admit, where people are just cogs in a machine, doing work because the machine says that you do work, right? I work because I work, right? Not really focused on that value, focused on that vision. And they'll just keep going. That's such a waste, right? One of the things that we do in our industry, building software and stuff, is we'll set out to do something, and then like immediately the gold plating starts, the bike shedding starts, the HIPAA requests come in, right? And it just balloons, and everybody loses sight of what you started out to do, or what you actually set out to achieve, and you become these zombies, right? Mindlessly, lifelessly working toward these things. How much better would it be to have spirit, to have life, to be moving toward a goal, to be pushing as a group toward a destination? The great thing about destination is once you achieve a destination, you get to do another one. So that's what, our case study set out to do. We set out to provide this destination, be able to know when to declare victory. So these are actual lines from the case study. I'm not going to read them out to you, but if you do read them, you'll notice some of these lines are actually fairly familiar. That's because originally those goals that we set out to at the start, right? So how did we do? How did I do? Did we reach our destination? Well, I mean, kinda, kinda a little bit. We reduced tech debt by not 50%, but 31%, right? We wanted to see more gains in cleanup efforts, but I mean, nobody's going to be mad at 31%. I wouldn't call it red, but definitely didn't achieve the 50 we set out to do. What about throughput? How did we do on throughput? Well, our Epic throughput went up by 40% with no change in personnel. There is not an organization on earth that will thumb their nose at that kind of value add, right? So that was pretty awesome. And Epic lead time, they were having a really hard time getting through decision making and planning, and there was very much a big bang long-term delivery model. But we reduced their Epic lead time by 63%, which was a big deal, right? Literal years to work on Epics before they ever even got started on them. And through an iterative model, just-in-time development practices, I mean, it's kind of my cheater metric. Anytime I want to be like, see, I'm doing a good job, I'll go look at lead time, because once you go iterative from not being iterative, it's real hard to get bad metrics out of lead time, right? So, yeah, I mean, they were able to respond quicker. They were able to get started quicker. Ultimately, reduced waste. That's not something we measured, but I mean, it was tangible. And having this, so the question still stands, did you make it? Kinda. I mean, kinda. But when they went to extend, they did extend, right? We reached the end of our account 6 months in, asked the question like, hey, Randall's kind of cool. Do you want to keep him around a little bit longer? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they liked me enough to keep me around. I'd say the destination, whether we reached it or not, is not as important as having it. Because just having the destination, just having that thing to contrast to from where we are versus where we started out, and being able to ask the question, hey, should we call it here? Really did, that was where the real magic happened, right? And a good vision isn't going to be something that always must be achievable. Remember I said believable is probably better. But it does have to very clearly, with that clarity, outline your destination. And this reminds me of a really cool quote by one of the best people to have ever lived, Toni Morrison. I'm a craftsman. I'm an artist. I love this quote. Artist is about art. All art is about knowing when to stop. Toni Morrison wrote The Bluest Eye. It's a short story. Got nothing else going on in the afternoon. Do yourself a favor and go read it. It's absolutely amazing. But, this is great advice. This keeps you from doing the bike shedding, the gold plating, right? Know when to stop. Know when you have reached your destination. Or at the very least, ask, right? Bring it up. Let's talk about it. Are we there yet? Right? And I'm going to take Tony's advice and I'm going to call it there. I want to thank you all for spending some time with me. This experience working with this case study was a really big deal. It was a pivotal point in my career, in my life, honestly. But do remember, good visions will have clarity. They will inform action. They'll be believable by the people who need to use them, and they'll define a destination for you. And if you get the opportunity, maybe just kind of like envision your future, right? Write out months from now where you want to be and use that as a day-to-day compass to get you to where you need to be. Thank you so much.
You're awesome, Randall. This has been great. So that's all for today's Improving Talk session. Coming up next week, join us for the next webinar from this series, which it's called Modern Applications, Modern Teams, Resilient by Design, Unified in Delivery. with Nick Clarkson and Roberto Garcia, in which you'll discover how cross-regional teams build a modern cloud-native platform with trust, agility, and a shared purpose. You don't want to miss it. Until next time, everyone, have a great rest of your day. Thank you again, Randall.